The whole business is built on convenience. It's like being an anodyne for a headache. We want to be the pill that takes the pain away.
Hello listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Directors Club podcast, brought to you by Cumbria Chamber of Commerce. In this series, we get to explore some of the most interesting characters, directors and leaders from Cumbria, and perhaps on occasion beyond. The Directors Club is kindly sponsored by Rachel Bell Wealth Management and Muckle LLP. So today, I'm here with Eddie Black, who's the Managing Director of the Eco Group, a group of problem-solving companies that focus on dealing in one thing: solutions. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today, so let's get into it. Hi Eddie.
Hi, how are you, Eve?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Enjoying the weather. It's not very great, but hey, listen, we're still smiling.
I think in the north we just accept that we're always going to be wet. It's always going to be raining, so it's going to be grey, and if we get a sunny day, that's a bonus.
Yeah, definitely.
Fab. So, can you start by telling me a bit about your background? Where are you from?
I was born in the south of Scotland in Dumfries, and I lived in Annan for most of my life. I now reside in a little place in the country, Kirkpatrick, Fleming. So I'm out of the way, but I'm very local to the business, very local to the HQ, so it's good and handy.
Mm-hmm. So where did you go to school? Have you always been local?
Yeah, I worked away for a lot of years, but I went to the local school, went to the local academy, and then I went to Banff and Buchan College up in to pursue a career in the fishing industry. So that was my background. So I spent a lot of time at sea, a lot of time on fishing boats. So when I was a skipper for the majority of my life.
So was that your first job out of school?
That was my first job out of school. I had plenty part-time jobs in the run up to leaving school, but yeah, it was my first job. Well, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was my first job choice, but it was the one that was quite easy for me to get into. So that's what I did, and I ended up sticking with it for a lot of years.
And why was that?
It was an extremely challenging job. Probably didn't do as well at school as I should have done, and didn't stick in as hard as I should have done. So I had to kind of take a bit of a harder route to success than what normal people do. But the money was good. I loved the sea, loved the challenge. It was a very, very challenging job. So, and then when I became a skipper, and that was another new challenge to overcome and be successful at what you did. You were basically, your destiny was in your own hands. So it's basically why I am who I am today. So I firmly believe that, because it's a job where when you have a problem, it is a real problem. There's no two ways about it. It could be life or death, or it could be, it could be an economic problem.
Mm-hmm.
There was never, the minute you left the harbour, you really didn't know what was going to happen because of all the variables. Was there fish there? Was there not fish there? Was there what was the weather going to be like? Where you got to have breakdowns? Could you fix them at sea? Could you not fix them at sea? There was lots of variables in the job, so it was. It certainly kept you on your toes, but it made me focus on a solution rather than a problem.
Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that level of uncertainty when you get on that ship or that boat every morning and think, I have no idea what's going to happen today?
I think you just got to commit. You just got to stick to the task. You set out the harbour with a plan, and the majority of the times that plan never worked. But it comes down to how much detail you put into your job, I think, in regards to learning stuff that people probably didn't really think was applicable. learning the seasons, learning the sea temperatures, going into that kind of detail kind of set you apart from everybody else. So once you had that knowledge, or once you started to gain a certain level of knowledge, you started to apply that and seen there was patterns, you seen there was, things that were happening from a seasonal base or, sea temperature base. So using all that kind of detailed knowledge, using the best technology you could at any given time, made your job a little easier, and it gave you a bit more consistent, probably built-in consistency to what you do. So a lot of people just go out and just hope for the best. I did try and apply some rules and some systems, and I became reasonably successful at that. In fact, I was really successful at it. But it was an extremely brutal job when you were away from home for a long time. The weather was an absolute nightmare, especially the winter. So I didn't want to be doing it when I was in my 40s and 50s. So I made a conscious decision to leave it in 2009, the end of 2009, and then I started this business in 2010. I just needed to get home. I needed to get I missed majority of my family's life because I was away for months on end, and then it was nice to come back and be safe.
Yeah. Is there anything that you can think of, or do you have any of those stories where you look back to what you did when you were a trawlerman and think that day really shaped who I am, or really shaped my decision-making process, or how I deal with things?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of occasions, to be honest. I had a death on the boat. That was had a major impact on me when I was quite young. I think I was about 25 at the time, 26. That was a big impact. I've been in a few storms where the vessel's been extremely damaged, burst windows, broken steelwork, all that sort of stuff, and standing in up to your knees in water, thinking whether the boat will get in the harbour or not. I've been in a couple of occasions with that as well. So yeah, it does shape you. It makes you quite hard, actually. I would probably say when I first started this business, I wasn't very sympathetic to things, but I've grown to become a bit more sympathetic, because it isn't as harsh out here, and as it isn't, you're never really in any danger here. And the biggest unknown was the weather, which you don't have to really deal with here. So, but there's a few things that have shaped my life, I would say, and made me focus on the things that are actually important, and really matter. I go into a lot of meetings, and now, when even today, where they think they've got a problem and they really haven't got a problem. But in their little world, it's a major problem. But I just look at it; it's quite a simple problem, and it's got me where I am in the eco group for sure. Because I'm very determined. That I've got no ability to say, well, I say no on occasions, but I haven't got that skill set where if I hit a door, I just have to go through it or find another door. I can't look backwards at all. I don't know why. I just don't see any point in it.
So do you think that forward fight, always finding a solution, has come from your trawler days of you
100%.
That harbour? And I was going to say come hell or high water, but I would imagine that is literally come hell or high water, you're going to get your crew and yourself back to that harbour. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard enough making money as it is. Well, all the variants that are out at sea. I respect. It doesn't even matter if you're fishing, but I respect anybody that goes to sea, because no matter what happens, the unexpected does happen. Trawler skipping, being on fishing boats is a completely different thing. It is a dangerous environment. I've seen so many injuries. It's unbelievable. What you do see in the telly is pretty much what happens. So they are quite a special breed. Probably a little crazy and a little bit, There's
I think the best people always are.
Oh well, that's true. Right, we're still crazy now, so.
Absolutely. So when you said that you're quite tough, and when you go into meetings, people they think they've got a problem, and you just don't think it's a problem. How do you deal with that? Is that quite an interesting gap to bridge when someone thinks they've got this serious problem, but you've got that perspective of life and death, and actually that is not a big problem at all? How do you kind of overcome that and get them onto your way of thinking?
Just brutal honesty, to be honest. That is it. I am a very, very, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I do wear my heart on my sleeve. I wouldn't say I'm an emotional person, but emotion does carry me. Passion, I suppose the word's passion. But I am extremely, if I do not agree with somebody, I couldn't care who they are or what level they're at. To be client focused, I truly believe, and I apply this to myself. So if somebody's selling to me, or I'm a client of somebody, I respect brutal honesty, because that's what you're paying for. If somebody's got to placate you and just tell you what you want to hear, you're not doing your job. So the only way I can, really work with people is if they're open to honesty. So if it's not working, it's not working. If it's good, it's good. But you've got to be able to take criticism, and or constructive criticism, and you've got to be able to take the positives as well. And, I'm a big believer in don't be frightened to fail, because that's the only way we can learn. If everything's going right all the time, then you're not really learning anything. So I truly believe in these kind of elements, but relationship wise, I truly believe my clients are extremely loyal to me, and I'm quite sure I'm a pain in the backside at times, but the fact of the matter is, it's if you've earned people's respect and you've delivered for them time and time again via honesty, and believe me, and I mean that on myself as well. So if we've done something wrong, we will hold our hands up and say we've made a massive mistake here, or we've not delivered to what we should have delivered. But honesty is a massive thing. I'm not really.
Do you find that brutal honesty also works with customers? Because there's a lot of people that would be afraid of being brutally honest with a customer and saying, look, this isn't working, or this isn't working how we thought it would, or we've made a mistake. Admitting to mistakes can be really terrifying to customers.
Oh, they can be. I suppose the business has grown at such a level where, we've got a lot of infrastructure here, a lot of different dynamics within the business, a lot of different personalities in the business. So if I don't think that I'm the person for that client, I won't be the person that goes to that client. I'll send somebody else that I think is more suited to the client. I don't, because some clients cannot take my level of honesty, but in the fields I work in, I like is mainly industrial. So an innovation, and we're trying to fix a real problem, or we're trying to make something more efficient. To do these things, you've got to be honest. If we're selling something in a box, like we're selling IT, or we're selling comms, or we're selling construction, it's a different approach. It's a totally different client base. They've got totally different perceptions as a client of what they want. So again, it depends on. I'm not saying I'm the right person for everybody, but I do believe the clients that I deal with directly on a long-term basis appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. So the right person for the job is really important to you.
Yeah, I think so. I'm always on hand. I'm always on hand for advice, or I'm always on hand if it even comes down to writing emails. If some of the younger people in the business, they get an awkward situation, I'll help them try and word it or frame it in a way that gets their point across, but also gets the client's point across as well, so that the client knows that you're being honest but not being condescending or patronising. Or it is quite a real skill set to client manage and make sure you retain clients' respect and relationships. I mean, I tell everybody in the business that if you can build a relationship with somebody in a business and make them a rock star, then you've won a watch, because they'll just keep coming to you time and time again, because they'll start to trust you, and they know they can rely on you delivering for them. So everybody wins out of it. But again, that's an experience thing as well. You know, it comes down to experience, and we've got various levels of experience throughout the business. You know, from really early adoption people where they've just came in and they're quite green, right through to experienced people that have been there, done it, and you know, are still learning, but they're far more experienced. So I do believe coaching and nurturing and trying to take the team with you in the same mindset's important. So your culture and values and ethics need to be consistent. And I'm a big believer in you've got to lead from the front. So I won't ask anybody to do something I wouldn't do myself. So I've done every task in this business, every task. Even today, I still believe in that. There isn't a job in here that I can't do. Apart from accounts, I'm crap at that. But
do you know what? That's not uncommon with entrepreneurs.
Nah, I've got.
You'd be very unsurprised to hear that, I would imagine.
I've got some clever people that do that sort of stuff, but
it's not for everybody, I don't think.
No, but when it comes to actual physical tasks and doing a job, I will do any task available. I will get mucked in if the chips are down, no matter what level the business is at. You know, which gains you respect. It gains you. They know you're. You know, if I'm asking them to do something, I'll do it myself. You know, I'll be the first person that volunteers. If a job needs taken over a line and it looks like it's falling behind, or it needs men or people put to it, you know, I'll offer myself to that if I need to. Often now they just tell me no, I just get in the way, but
you're still willing to help regardless. You'll still be there making the tea.
But the offer's there anyways. So.
So let's go back then. You said that it was 2009 that you gave up being a trawlerman and you came back and you wanted to be on land, and you started Eco in 2010. Yeah. What was the start of Eco? How did it start? What was the idea?
Well, Eco started with a process called dry ice cleaning. In 2009, both my wife and myself invested in a cleaning franchise. You know, clients like Odeon Cinemas and people like that. And then we started doing a lot of kitchen hotel, like kitchen cleaning, duct cleaning specifically. And it was a really, really hard job. I was working, wife was running the franchise, and I looked for a process to take the labour out of it, because that's what I generally did when I was fishing. And I was always looking at trying to streamline processes. And I came across dry ice cleaning, and I thought, that's interesting. But at that time, the franchise was actually going well, but the actual people behind the franchise we just didn't fit with their morals at all, and we just couldn't work with them. So both my wife and decided that, you know what, we've invested a lot of money in this, but it's not for us. And we didn't like the people, we didn't like their culture. They were greedy, they were quite immoral, and it was money at all cost. Yeah. So we just decided it wasn't for us. So we walked away from that investment. The minute I walked away,
scary thing to do.
Yeah, well, the investment was about £150,000 at the time of our savings. So it was, we'd sunk a lot into it. So we just walked away from it. Didn't pursue it. Just thought it's one of them things. I jacked my job in about 2 weeks later, and then decided I'm going to start this business up. So whatever money we had left, we had about I could probably last a year with what I had left. And then I decided, right, I'll give myself a year. If I can get this dry ice cleaning business off the ground. If I can't, then I'll go back fishing, or I'll go to the oil rigs, or I'll do something. Touch wood. The rest is history. So
it's worked. So what is dry ice cleaning? How did you come to find out about dry ice cleaning? How does it work?
So dry ice cleaning is an eco-friendly. It's actually, in today's words, in today's buzzwords, I should say, it's a circular economy business, because what you do is, generally speaking, it's a cleaning tool. So basically, our job's to clean things and maintain things so they last longer. So that's what circular economy is about. But dry ice cleaning itself, we use CO2 which is taken from other industrial processes. It's then put into a liquid. We turned it into a solid, and then we used that as a blasting media. So basically, if you think of pressure washing or sandblasting, instead of using sand or water, we use CO2. But the beauty of CO2 was it always wanted to go back, sublimate back to its natural state, which was a gas. So the minute so say I was taking paint off a wall, once it's done its process, the CO2 sublimates back to a gas, and all you're left with is that substrate that you've taken on. So it's a very clean process compared to other blasting techniques. So why we called it eco in the first place, because it was an eco-friendly method of cleaning, and it turned out to be quite a good thing in regards to today's agenda, which is obviously net zero and sustainability. And so that's where we started, and then very quickly we became quite successful with that. We got some really good blue chip names under our belt, which opened the doors to other places, and then we were taking on jobs that nobody else had been successful with and turned them into success. So we really made a name for ourselves. And then I invested in manufacturing in about 2012, I think it was, and we were the first people to be independent manufacturers and suppliers. Through my kind of tenacity and willingness to poke my nose in where it probably wasn't required, I started saying, asking questions why people were doing things the way they were doing them, and basically started to solve problems for companies and take on other processes that they were doing, and it kind of evolved into a kind of solution-led business. So I was quite often like the 2 o'clock in the morning phone call when, say, a site had a problem, and they would go, I wonder who's got a contact, or I wonder who can help me get through this issue. And generally speaking, it was my phone that used to ring, so which was a good thing. Wife wasn't very happy, but it was a good thing because it meant that somebody trusted you to get them out of a situation. So, and then it just, the more and more problems that were getting presented, that's why we started new businesses. So we thought, you know what, let's build a bit of diversity into what we do, And I hate the term one-stop shop, but essentially speaking, that's what we are.
We're going with all the corporate buzzwords today. We're going to have to slip in blue sky thinking and
yes,
ground hall and all of that by the time.
Need a bit of blue sky thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy path and all that sort of thing. So you were a small business and you had your dry ice clean and you'd walked away from a franchise, which is an incredibly brave thing to do. It's absolutely amazing. You got into blue chip companies. How did you get in? Was that you sticking your nose in where you say it wasn't wanted and you just ask questions? Did you have a contact? How did that
some of it was luck. Some of it was just lucky timing. The testimonials we got were really useful. When you get testimonials off the likes of like companies like DuPont or Pirelli, they really, really do open doors. If you're working with them, you're working with them for a reason. And so there was a lot of luck. There was a lot of tenacity. A lot of homework was done in regards to, I have this argument in-house all the time with salespeople or people that perceive themselves to be salespeople. You've got to do your homework. So if you're approaching somebody, you do your homework before you do that. And you try and find out what it is they're needing to, what are their challenges? And then have we got something that fits that challenge? And I think asking questions, once you were in there, don't be frightened to open your mouth and don't be frightened to go and ask questions. Go and find out what happens beyond your job. That was another thing I did a lot of, and that's what I used to do when I was fishing, because in the last probably five years of fishing, that's what I really did. I went to a boat where it was struggling and I would find a solution to fix that boat. So basically it was fixing businesses at sea. This is no different. I'll go and look at a situation and say, right, we need to put this in place, that in place, and that in place. Now, they either trust you to do that or they don't. It just happens to have been quite successful at that. And it's, that's my kind of core end of the business. But equally,
do you believe in luck? Yeah. Believe in good setup, homework, asking questions and tenacity, or do you genuinely believe in luck?
I believe in you create your own luck. And I think I generally believe if you play the long game and you're a good person, people do generally stick with you, and they don't, eventually somebody would, if you don't stick to that kind of mantra, people do see through you and it becomes a very short-lived relationship. Yes, I do believe in luck, but I do believe in you create your own luck as well. And it's funny, the harder you work, the more luck you get. There's no two ways about it. So I tell my kids, you've got to work hard, no matter what you do. The harder you work, the more you will get. The more you put in, the more you will get out. And there's no two ways. There's no shortcut to it, unless you're extremely lucky. You've won the lottery, or somebody's gifted you money, or you've been fortunate to walk into a family business that's already set up. But they're privileged positions. But if you've generally got to roll up your sleeves and work, I think you've just, if you're willing to do more than the next person, you've got more of a challenge of succeeding. So, but I truly do believe that.
No, it's really important, and it's really interesting to get your perspective on it as well, because I think sometimes with people that are perceived to be really successful, you've got a lot of businesses, you've done really well, you've got some great contracts, and you think it's so easy for people on the outside to look at it and think, well, you just got that. That was just all luck, or you bought that business like that, or that fell into your lap. And actually, that's often not the case at all. People only see the end product. They don't see all the work that's gone in before.
If you think about it, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of successful people build something from the ground up, and then let their kids come into it without working from the bottom up, and it's a disaster. So I don't see the point of that. I've told my kids, if they come into the business, they come into the business and they've got to earn their respect by everybody. If you don't earn your respect, you go nowhere, because you will get the support. And I think that comes down to, respect's a massive thing. And again, there's no shortcut to that. If my kids, I don't deal with I've got one of my daughters worked here. She did every job in the business, from processing, working 24 hours, the 4 on 4 off shifts, 24 hours a day. She did all of that, all the manual tasks she's done. Now she's off doing her own thing. And then eventually she wants to come back to the business, but she wants to bring something back into the business. My other daughter works in the business, but she's under somebody else's wing. I will not deal with her. As far as I'm concerned, she's got her own line manager. She's got to earn her own respect. She can't come and knock on daddy's door and ask for a favour, because they won't get it. That's the way I am. And I just, I didn't get where I was by, and I won't let anybody ruin what I've done either. But what's the point? What's the point of working hard for your life just to let it go backwards? It's irresponsible in my eyes. But again, it happens.
And that's incredibly fair as well to all of your staff, I would imagine, because you talk a lot about ethos and bringing people on the journey and, having everyone aligned. And do you see what sort of impact that has on your team when you say, you can't come and knock on daddy's door and ask for a favour, you have to do the same as everybody else. You are no better than anyone else just because you're my daughter. You're not just going to get it handed on a silver platter. Do you see the effect that has on your staff? Have you had any feedback on what they think about that, or how does that?
I think they respect it. I think they respect the fact. I have had feedback on it, and I have had that situation where I'll go and ask my dad, but straight away they just go, well, we know what your dad's going to say, so it's pointless. At the end of the day, that's the way it is. How could I step in? How demeaning is it or undermining is it to undermine somebody else's decision? If that's the decision, that's it. That's what they're paid to do. They're empowered to make decisions. I don't want to make every decision in the business. It's the single point of failure. It's and it doesn't empower anybody to actually go and make mistakes. Actually, it's I've done a few radical things in my time in the business where I've just gone missing for a week just to make them make decisions so that I'm not here. They can't knock on the door. So again, I don't know. I might be doing things unconventionally. I don't know, but it seems to be working. So we'll just have to keep plowing away. And
if it's working, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
well, listen, I've broke many things. I've made so many mistakes, don't you worry.
Well, that sounds like a really interesting, it's really interesting that you say that, because you said at the very beginning, it's really important that you make mistakes because that's how you learn. And by the sounds of it, you're really happy and comfortable with people making mistakes. And that's something else that can be really difficult. So what is your ethos around that? How have you got so comfortable with people making mistakes and being okay with it?
Again, it comes down to what's the consequence. In reality, what really can go that wrong? That's the way you've got to think about it. I used to, when I first started business, I was a little bit more, let's say, naive. I used to try and control everything myself, and I was very guarded, and I didn't want to. I suppose it was trust. Did I trust that person to go and do that by themselves? I used to try and do everything myself, but as you grow with your experience, you learn that's just not sustainable. You can't do it. You've got to trust the team beside you. And listen, we've been hurt with that. We've had the wrong people in here that have got the wrong ethics, we've had a wolf in sheep's clothing in the business. We've had all of that, but it won't change the way we are. You've got to trust the team. You've got to give them a chance. And the more the business grows and the more people come into the business, the higher the risk is that somebody's got to come in and go against that trust, look at everything from a selfish point of view. And you do open yourself up to that, but it won't change me, and it won't change the way the business operates, because we're quite open book. We try and communicate everything through the business. Like at the moment, we're doing just about to launch an internal campaign, like we would say a campaign outside of the business to try and attract clients. We're going to do a whole marketing campaign inside the business so that everybody in the business understands who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where we're going, and what does it mean for them? What does it give them? What does it give their families? What does it give their, we're trying a lot of things from a holistic, blue sky thinking kind of mantra. But we're trying hard and trying to do things differently than, we invest a lot of money inside the business.
Mm-hmm.
We've started to be a lot more selfish to our own meetings as well, because often or not we'll cancel a meeting for a client, but actually you're doing yourself a bit of an injustice there, because you need to spend time in the business as well, communicating and having meetings and making sure that our strategies are aligned and everybody's on the same page, and and we let that slip for a wee while, and you can see that in the business. But we're very focused on, if we commit to something, i.e. each other in the business, and we go to have a meeting, don't cancel it just because somebody else just came in at the last minute. It doesn't make sense, because what you're doing is saying that's more important than that. And I think quite priority led. Yeah.
How did that manifest itself in the business? You said you let it slip and you could see it. How did you see it? How did it manifest itself?
Well, we're in a bit of a transition. We've just built we've just spent the best part of £6 million on a new HQ and processing plant. We were in substandard facilities, substandard, we had people everywhere. And then COVID happened, we had people everywhere again. It was everywhere with bodies all over the shop. So it was quite fragmented. Once we got in the building, we realised just how fragmented it had become. Because you weren't having proper regular meetings, you weren't face to face, you weren't able to support people when they were struggling, or it was quite hard. We found it very hard as a business, because when we did open the doors to the HQ, we did put a poll round to say who wants to come back in and who doesn't, and actually everybody came back and said they wanted to come back to the office, which was really interesting for us. Now that we're back, and what we're doing now is actually making sure that we commit to that, commit to the processes, commit to the people in the business. If we don't support each other, we're going to go nowhere. So again, it's about honesty. You've got to be honest what's failed and what's not failed, and then focus on what you can do to change whatever's failed, and focus on what's been successful, and try and put more into that, try and fix what the failures have been. Where are the gaps? What are we missing? What infrastructure do we need? Where do we need to invest? All these sorts of things. And that's why I believe if you're a growing company, especially one that's got diversity in it, as diverse as we are, you've got to be able to act responsibly and stick to some of the strategies that we put in place and give them a chance to work. Often we've jumped in with 2 feet and then gone at 100 miles an hour before putting the infrastructure in at the back end, and you think, okay, so you end up chasing your tail.
We did that the wrong way around.
Yeah, so it's about sometimes like at the moment taking your foot off the gas, and at the moment not taking your foot off the gas, that's probably the wrong word, but just taking a little bit of a breather just to say, right, hold on, because at the end of the day, you've got to be respectful to the people that touch every part of the business, and that's generally your compliance, your accounts, your certifications and all that. So all the stuff that's really important, but gets kind of put to the side because you're so focused on the job. And
it's not the exciting stuff though, is it? Finance, and having good finance processes and having good internal processes and governance and all of that stuff. And I love that stuff because I think it's really important, but it's not sexy and it's not exciting. And you can, think about that later. And actually, no, think about it now, because it's really good framework to help you grow.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you look at that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about Eco Group, because Eco Group is quite a collection of businesses from what I understand. So how did it evolve from your dry ice cleaner, and what was next, and how did it get to where it is now, and what is it now?
Well, that is a good question. I would say it's an eclectic group of products and services and solutions. That's what I would say it is. The best way to describe the model is we want to join dots up. So people say, how does IT relate to dry ice, and how does dry ice relate to construction? But actually it does, because I could pick one client, for instance, say the college is we've cleaned the facade of the building, we've supplied furniture, we've supplied infrared cameras, we've supplied construction. So they've taken different elements of the business, and it's all about the convenience. If you think of people now, anybody, look at Amazon. The whole business is built on convenience. The whole business is built on speed and efficiency and making it easy for people. It's the same. What we're trying to do is make it easy for our clients to say, right, we've just completed a project in Dumfries for a charity called Food Train. They hadn't used us at all. Now we've got their IT, their comms. We've just built a building for them. We've just put EV charging in for them. Not built a building, sorry. We've just refitted an old facility they've got. We've done the groundworks. We've did the EV charging. Then we found those problems with drains. So we've fixed the drains for them. So it's like being an anodyne for a headache. We want to be the pill that takes the pain away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about convenience, having one place to call where you can kind of go, you know what, they could do 80% of what we're after. Somebody else can do the other 20, but at least we've got one point of contact. We've got a place where they'll take responsibility for that. What we've built here is a showcase of what we are as a business. So when we bring clients here now, we can say, right, we did all of this, everything. It's a big, big statement. So yeah, the business is kind of growing because I do, again, because I get my nose into everything. And, it's about opportunity. If I know there's an opportunity, and I think there's if I hear somebody's not doing something well, or there's a contract opportunity, then why not try and fit that gap?
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge in the world at the minute is net zero. So, well, apart from the war that's going on with Russia and Ukraine, of course, but if we go on to what's the biggest thing in people's minds at the minute, is global warming and what's got to be coming soon. So what we've done with that is we've created we know it's a new industrial revolution. So we've put together a suite of products that are all really great in their individual siloed place. So we thought, why not put them all together and join the dots and try and make all of these things complement each other. That comes from carbon accountancy right through to the physical solutions. So 4 areas we're concentrating on at the moment is decentralisation, decarbonisation, off-grid energy and waste energy. And then that's great, providing the solutions, but how do you actually back it all up in the background? So, carbon accountancy and reporting is going to be a very, very important thing in the next 2 to 3 years. PLCs, it'll be important as of this year, next year. So again, it's trying to say, right, we know we're going to have them problems, our clients are going to have them problems, so how do we go on the journey together? It goes back to me saying, I wouldn't ask somebody to do something we are not doing ourselves. So we're going to do the same journey as we want our clients to do. So we can learn together, make the mistakes together, make the success together, and work on it in a way where a bit more collaborative and joined up thinking.
And that goes back to your honesty as well, doesn't it? You can go on that journey together if you're being honest, and you can say this work, and so let's try something else. What was the second business then? So you had phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning and you were always asked to solve problems. What was that second opportunity where you thought, there's another business here?
The second opportunity, well, we started comms and we started construction at the same time.
All right. What was the catalyst for that?
A group of people came to me. They had they wanted to start something. I said, I'm interested in it. Didn't know anything about it. In reality, I didn't really want to know anything about it. But I was intrigued by, they wanted to start something. They wanted to actually have somebody that was already trying to build a brand, so they could attach themselves to a brand. And albeit we're a very small brand, but at the time our aim was to build a brand and then have a company that somebody behind them that was willing to, put the effort into them. So they kind of pitched it, I liked it, and then we started it. So it was another opportunity. I could see that from a client base at the time. I thought, I know I can take this into my clients as they are. Maybe not straight away, but the relationships are there, the contacts are there, the trust's already there. Yeah. Why not? And then in fact, the second business was actually training. One of the really important things I did early on was, this is something we don't even talk about. In fact, it's something we haven't even done anything about, which is crazy because it's probably one of the biggest opportunities the business has got. And there's a focus going back on it just now. We took over a process for one of our clients. It was a problem they'd had for about 40 years. And we took it on board, we fixed it and we're still operating it as of now.
What was the problem?
It's in a production plant where they had an area which sits in between a component end of the factory and the output of the factory. And if this area doesn't function correctly, the components can build up, but where the actual output goes, it's behind time. So we fixed this area that was in between the production and the component end of the factory, and that meant the client had to commit to putting the solutions in that I asked for in the layout I asked for, and then it was basically I took kind of three companies were kind of operating in the area, and I took the ownership of the whole thing. And then it basically made everybody a multi-skilled operator. And that led me to say, right, well, we fixed the problem, but how do we keep the quality and how do we keep the consistency up? And I decided, because there was no training manuals, there was nothing really in place. So we thought, we've put training manuals in place, but what is that actually doing? Who is measuring the competency here? So we actually went to the education sector, because 3 of these jobs were really skilled kind of engineering type jobs. So I went to the SQA in Scotland and asked them, how do you create a qualification from scratch that doesn't exist? And they told us it was very difficult. And the average time it takes a company to do this it generally has to be, it generally was at the time was like Shells and your BPs of the world. They were doing customised awards. And we decided, just, we're not asking that. We're not asking how hard it is. We're asking how do you do it, or what's the process? And these companies were taking 2 to 3 years to do these. And we ended up doing 3 in 6 months. It had never been heard before. So we completed 3 customised qualifications that were at a reasonable level in the SCQF levels. So that meant we could actually hand a person a tangible piece of paper that said they were qualified in their job. No, it was a real empowerment and, you know, investment in them, and an empowerment thing, actually say, you know what, we've got this to say we're good at the job. And then because we did that, we decided, oh, well, we've done that now. Why don't we see how we can become an SQ accredited centre? So which means that, essentially speaking, I've got the same accreditation as any college in Scotland. So we actually are an SQ accredited centre as well. So that was the test. So, which means if we've got a teacher, we could do 42,000 different courses if we wanted to. Now, that's not our interest. We don't want to become a college. But the importance of that is we can take straight from school, and we can, you know, we can teach them, in theory, we can teach them within the business into a qualification. So we deal a lot with the college. I sit on the board of the college as well, because it's important that these places succeed. But I think it's an interesting, at the moment, we're actually thinking of doing 6 more in the net zero space. So we've just, as of last week, we approached the SQA again and said, listen, we've still got some credit with you. We'd like to embark on another 6 qualifications. So there could be a few more to come. So, but I think it was one of the best things we ever did, because for the client, especially for that problem, the client seen us making an investment that we didn't need. It was expensive. And we made that investment, you know, because I'd made a commitment to, this was a team of people that had been 2-paid 7 times in 6 years. Imagine how demoralising that is as an employee. And my commitment to them was, we fix this problem, we operate this problem. I promise you, if it's a 5-year contract, I will be your boss for 5 years. That was my commitment. But to do that, we had to put things in place, because the problem exists all around the world for this particular company. We quickly became the most efficient area in the whole group. So it attracted the senior bosses over and they came to see us to see how we'd done it and what was, you know, so they wanted me to start businesses in all the different plants. But the problem I had was, that's extremely expensive. I was too young a business at the time. Some of these countries have got serious political problems that I just didn't understand. But what I did say to them was, I'm not saying no to it, but I am saying no to starting businesses. But what I will do is come up with a format that works. So in theory, the format is, as long as they did the same suite of solutions in the same layout, I could train a team of trainers and assessors to go around the world in each of those plants and train them in a systemized way to the qualification all around the world. So that solution's still applicable. We just haven't done anything with it yet.
It's always amazing to hear things like that. One of my favorite phrases, which I say all the time, is don't try and boil the ocean. If you have a global issue and you have this huge problem, don't look at it as this huge problem. You know, go piece by piece. What can you do? And it's amazing how often you can find a local solution to a global problem just by isolating one area and really looking at it. And I guess that goes back to what you were saying. You always try and find out what was going on outside of your job, and you want to get into the reads, and you want to know about what's the water temperature, what's the wind speed, what, you know, all of the little niche things. You really want to drill down on that. And then once you've got it, you can scale it up, right? Because that's exactly like what you've done.
Yeah. It's the same principles. You know, that's why I firmly believe it is what's made me what I am. That's me personally. It's very hard for me to get that throughout, you know, the business. It's a lot for people to take on. You know, it takes a huge amount of work and a huge amount of time. And sometimes you won't be successful in it either. So you might have wasted a lot of time and energy, but you always get something out of it at the back end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always something that's positive out of, you know, no matter what we do, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, there's always something, there's always a positive to take. As you say, boiling the ocean's a big thing. Oh, I always say, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
In small pieces, it's the same thing. So,
small pieces, yeah.
But yeah, it is important. I think, again, is that an accident or was that planned? Did we know that was going to have such a big effect? And, you know, the client looked at us like, that's security of supply. That is true security of supply. That was, you know, it was an important thing we did. You know, probably didn't really think about it that much at the time. An interesting dynamic. We've got a situation in the processing plant at the minute. We're contemplating doing that the same way. And what was really interesting about it is we did a presentation on it to the client and to our staff. Some of these people have been doing their job for a long, long time. So why now do a qualification? It doesn't really make sense. But what we were trying to say to them was that's why it's failed in the past. Because, you know, everybody's doing the job in a different way. So what we're trying to do is use your knowledge, all the good things that you're doing, package them into one thing and make that the system. And we can do that in one way. We could do it through training, or SOPs, or whatever you want to call it, or we can do it through a qualification. Let's bring the client in and see what their reaction is. So we brought the senior people in and said, this is what we're going to do. This is a qualification. And they actually spoke to our staff and went, you do realise that this is what world-class companies do. That was the words to them. So they took it really serious to say, oh, the client's really taking this serious, so this must be something good. Mm-hmm. What I didn't do when the client was there was one other piece of paper that the staff had that the client didn't see. And what I did was, I think it was, say there was six elements to the qualification, from somebody starting from day zero right through to being a supervisor or a manager. And what I did was I made a tier system, and then I put a pay grade against each of the tier systems and said to them, if you get that qualification, no matter what you're doing at that particular time, even if you're just an operator because there's not a slot available, you will get that rate of pay. And I says, I'm going to end up paying a lot more money because that's my ambition, is to pay a lot more money, but that means I've got a lot more skilled people. Mm-hmm. So
retaining the skill as well.
Exactly. Well, what was really interesting was the people that were quite vocal and used to get themselves up the ladder a little bit were generally the people who were willing to talk a little bit more. But the quiet ones that never really wanted to speak up for themselves through, it could be confidence, or the minute you put that, I was getting, so can I go for all of them? And we were like, yeah. All of a sudden you had people coming out from the background and actually putting themselves forward for something that I asked them why, and they used to say, well, we didn't think we'd get the job, so there's no point in this. But when you actually put it in a piece of paper and say, right, this is open to everybody, it was kind of unearthed some talent at the time, which was really interesting. And that was on a very small scale. But so you imagine you do that on a big scale. That's why I see it as one of the biggest opportunities. Because the biggest failings, I think, in education at the minute is education wants you to go to them all the time, when actually businesses wanting education to come to them. This was what we did. So
yeah. Did you find that with the ones who were, you said there was some that were quieter that came out of the woodwork and really excelled, the ones who were a bit more noisy, who'd maybe gone up the ladder a little bit, did it rumble them at all? Did you find anyone who was a little bit all talk and then couldn't?
Well, what it does is it actually creates competition, and competition is good in any walk of life. So I would say it made them a little bit uncomfortable, because operating under that's a given all the time. Mm-hmm. You become
that's complacent. The way we've always done it.
Yeah, and you become complacent. So competition is good because if it keeps you on your toes. So that's what it did. And again, it shows you about consistency during COVID, and when we went back to operational. who came out, when the lockdown ended. It was strange because they came back with different attitudes, and it kind of went backwards for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had to performance manage some of the people out, just weren't performing. So yeah, it was interesting times.
Yeah.
But again, we've gone back to that consistency piece, and it's back to where it was, and it got back to it quite quickly. It is an extremely important element of the success of that particular.
So you've said you do cleaning, training, comms and construction, but that's not it, is it?
No.
What else? What else do you do?
We've got an upholstery business over in West Cumbria.
An upholstery business?
Yes. Called Gillhouse Upholstery. So that we've got, we've just launched Eco Go Zero, which is all focused on the net zero agenda. I've got business interests outside of Eco Group, so I've got a company down in a partnership, a 50-50 partnership with a company down in Clitheroe, which supplies industrial equipment like air purification, dehumidification, that sort of appliances. Yeah, we've got our fingers in a few pies, so
never bored.
Never bored. I've got another company called Eco Process Solutions, and that's mainly geared up to what I was talking about before, where a client has a particular problem, they could ask us to look at it, come up with a solution. In the few we've done, it's actually been, we've designed it, built it, and then operated it for them on their behalf. One of them's a large contract, which is a 10-year contract, which is a very complicated contract, but a very important contract for the client. So it's taken an awful lot of planning and an awful lot of delivery. And it was just at the start. We started it just at the beginning of COVID, which was really, really not helpful. But,
no.
But what happened with that was, again, it shows the attitude of the long-term people in here. We built a processing plant, and when I say it is an extremely large Meccano set that was sitting on the floor, and we put it together. We couldn't get engineers because nobody would travel, so we ended up putting it. We ended up putting it together ourselves. So that was a team made up of myself, the ops manager. We had a couple of plumbers doing it, a couple of joiners doing it, we had labourers doing it. So we put it all together ourselves, so that we know every single nut, bolt, and cog that's on there. So
everyone loves a Meccano set, especially one.
It was quite good. It was actually, as I say, which meant that we've actually built out every element of this building and the process plant, which is great. So I take my hat off to them all.
Yeah.
They haven't got that attitude where they say it's not my job. And that's really, really important.
I think that's my most hated phrase in the world, but that's not my job. But that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah. Well, you'll see me talking about that all the time. How many people operate like that? But you know what? That's where the opportunity is. That's where I see the opportunity. If people are stuck in their ways, there's never been a better time for it, actually. Because look at everything now. You've got your energy crisis, you've got logistical problems, you've got all these sorts of things. So trying to see around some of those things. In fact, I did it just this morning, and it's almost default where I phoned a guy who sources a lot of stuff from China. I thought, I've got another route for you to source through. I had an off-the-record chat with him and said, how would you fancy changing your route and using another country as a supply chain? He says, if you can make it work, we'll do it. So, surprise opportunities just cross your path. But
you've got to be switched on enough to pick them up as well, because I think that's the way we've always done it, or that's not my job. Lets those opportunities pass you by. So if someone had seen that opportunity and thought, oh, well, it's not my job to really address that opportunity could have just floated on by and gone forever.
I suppose it is a skill set. it is a real skill, and see between the lines is probably the best, you know. And again, then you've got to go and figure it out, you know.
Yeah. Think about it. Tell me a bit about Eco HQ, because apparently that's amazing.
Yeah, we've spent an awful lot of money on it. So
was it 6 million you said you've spent on it?
Over 6 million in total. But we've spent an awful lot, you know. We've focused a lot on making it an inviting place to work and for our clients to come, and it hopefully to be a pleasant experience. So it's not just it's actually not that functional, if I'm honest. But who cares? We never built it to be functional. So it does its job, but we've spent a lot of time on thinking, right, how do we attract and retain the best talent? That's the whole thing about the building. How do we, when we bring a client in, they know we're serious, we've invested the money in the building for an experience, and say, right, you know, we're a serious company, we ain't going anywhere. So it is a bit of a statement.
What's the concept of the building?
Well, basically we've turned what is, essentially speaking, a tin shed, isn't it? Really, that's what they are. You know, it's an industrial building, but we've made it look like home from home, if that makes any sense. Well, we've made a fully functioning, probably 60-seater bar upstairs, so it's, you know, in the top floor. So that's pretty neat, you know.
Oh yeah, your house.
And it's got all the, you know, we've made sure it's got a gigabit line in it, so that we've got full, you know, future-proof the business in regards to connectivity. We've got, as I say, we've got great tech in it for doing conference calls or doing Teams calls or doing presentations or holding events. We've done, you know, we've catered for that. We're actually getting our clients using it. So the colleges have used it for their board meetings, and, you know, both Borders and Dumfries and Galloway College. We've held a few events here. Essentially speaking, it was a rectangular box. So there's not a straight wall in the building, which was great for our joiners and construction people, because they were delighted. We've made sure we've made features in it. We've put artwork in it. We've made, you know, the glazing's different to what we've done in other places. We've, you know, used funky carpet designs, and I'm not saying it's everybody's taste, and a lot of things have been brave to do, but it creates a talking point when people come in.
Absolutely.
And we built a logo into the boardroom ceiling. That was another challenge. But, and now we use neon lights to light it all up, so it's pretty cool.
I can't wait to see this.
Well, listen, the door's open.
I want to come up.
The door's open. It's funny because my daughter was here on Saturday. She was holding her bridesmaids party on Saturday, and my daughter came, who doesn't work for me anymore. She came and said, "Oh, can I come back and work here, Dad?" I went, "Well, maybe." She hadn't really been in the facility at all because she'd been working that hard. So it's the first time she's really had a chance to come in and see it. And she was like, where we came from was like coming from Beirut to where we are now. So that's about as brutal as I can give it.
That's a total upgrade.
So, but it's the whole thing's about, the whole building is about having informal chats around the kitchen table, having, you know, being able to just, don't get me wrong, there's places in it that have to be, you know, functional and private, but the rest of it is pretty much, listen, we're here as a team. You know, you can knock on somebody else's desk and ask them a question. Our PR company is sitting here every week. They work from here. And we've had a few people working from here. We've had a few suppliers just come in and use it as a drop-off place for, you know, a set down or a meeting, and that's what it's for. It's to be functioning. It's to be a statement piece in what I'm trying to do. My ultimate ambition is to leave a legacy here. That's my ultimate ambition, and that's what this, you know, this is the new starting point for the next 10 years as well. So, you know, it took us 10 years from nothing to where we are now. Obviously, we've got a few challenges. I thought this decade was going to be better than the last decade, but hey, That was short-lived. But listen.
By the sounds of it, your 10-year plan will be done in 5 years anyway. So don't worry too much about it.
Well, that's if I consolidate, but I never look like I'm consolidating. So there's too many opportunities out there.
There is. You've got to take them.
So,
Oh, I've got some questions for you.
right, come on then, fire away.
So, if you had to distill down your business ethos into one phrase, what would it be?
Oh, that's a hard one. Trusted, reliable, and honest.
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be it.
That would be it. In your opinion, what is your superpower?
Ooh. Live life without fear.
I think you don't get much braver after you've been on a trawler ship, do you really?
Hey, listen.
So, yes, that's a good superpower.
You smell better when you're off it, mate.
What is the most common misconception of you, and what would you say to set it straight?
The misconception of me, I have so many people say to me, it's all right for you. But nobody actually realizes what it takes to get to where, the sacrifice and the hours worked. They don't see what goes into getting where you are. So that phrase I hate, it's okay for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the biggest misconception. People just think, oh, they're all right. But that's not the case. That's not what's on the surface, isn't the reality. So that's probably the biggest misconception.
Not all that glitters is gold.
No. Heavy lies the crown, they say.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you tell your teenage self?
Sticking at school. That's what I would tell myself. Make life easier for yourself. Commit to it, because I probably still would have went the same journey, but I'd have made it would have been easier if I'd have just stuck in that little bit more. Why?
What was the difficulty?
Well, I was reasonably clever. I wasn't silly at school, but I just was, I was argumentative. That was my problem. I was just, teachers don't like to be argued with or contested with. I wasn't badly behaved, but I was very argumentative. If I didn't agree with something, I was quite, it was quite disruptive. Yeah, but it was quite disruptive to me, not to anybody else. I was quite disruptive to myself. But that's what I would tell myself, sticking at school.
If there was a movie to be made about your life, what would it be called, and which actor would play you?
Oh, God. Where do you get these questions from? It'd be called No Regrets. That's what it'd be called. Who would play me? I don't know. Leonardo DiCaprio, that'll do.
That would be a good one. Hey, if he's played Jordan Belfort, I think you'd do a cracking job of playing Eddie.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Let's get him on the phone. Right, these next ones are quick fires, so it's this or that.
Right.
Phone call or text message?
Phone call.
An email or a meeting?
Meeting.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Beach holiday or skiing holiday?
Skiing holiday.
Dogs or cats?
Cat.
Sweet or savoury?
Savoury.
Finally, this is the most controversial question of the podcast series. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
Ooh. It's a strong yes. The last few strong yes. So every guest leaves a question for the next podcast guest. Right. And the one that was left for you is, if you have employees, which you do, how important is employee well-being to you personally?
extremely high, because I truly believe if you're not happy at home, you won't be happy at work. And if you're not happy at work, you won't be happy at home. Well, we do have an employee assistance program, so that's why, because I do believe in that. A happier person is a more productive person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That was amazing. There's so much to take away from there, and I can't wait to see what happens with the Eco Group over the next few years.
Well, listen, doors are open. You're welcome to come and see us anytime.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Right, thanks, Eve.